I finished replacing those last two electrolytics. Before I started messing with the tuner, I wanted to check out that original picture tube, so I just popped it back in. And let's see what kind of image it can produce. Remember, it tested really weak. Well, nothing so far. There's the ion trap magnet. Needs to be messed with. Try to get it back in the spot where I was when I got it. But oh yeah, there's an image. Boy, is that a faint image. Looks like it's slowly coming to light. Now I got the lights dimmed in this room down quite a bit. Brightness up all the way. The brightness control is actually having very, very little effect. Contrast is having some effect. Brightness does virtually nothing. Now I've already checked the voltage on the pins of the CRT and they look to be within spec, and it does vary with the brightness control. I do recall the high voltage checked a bit low though earlier on when I was first trying to get an image. It's around 6.5. On the schematic says 11, so it'd be worth double checking that. It is slowly getting brighter. And I remember that when I had this on the tester, that the emissions would gradually climb, but they never got all that good. So before I go worrying too much about this picture tube, you can see what turn the lights on, virtually the image disappears. Before I bother messing around trying to do anything with this one though, I do have another 16, I think it's the same thing, a 16 RP4 with good emissions, and I want to pop it in here, and if that produces a really good picture, there's no point in me doing anything more with this one. Now before I go pulling this thing out, I want to make sure it's discharged. So there's a doorknob capacitor underneath the high voltage rectifier, then there's a 1 mega ohm resistor, and then this capacitor. So two capacitors, resistor in between to form a pi filter. And there could very well still be a charge on here. Yep, there it goes. Quite often when you have a set that's working properly with a nice bright CRT, the charge bleeds off as the set powers down. But in cases where you have very little emissions, I think the charge really gets retained in this picture tube. So where's the capacitor in the picture tube? Well, there's a coating on the inside that's conductive. Basically it's the same stuff as we have on the outside. So outer conductive coating, inner conductive coating, glass insulator in between, that's a capacitor. There's the grounding strap. Even though a lot of this is flaked off, there's still enough here, it's making contact with this. This is ground. This cap here connects to the inner coating. That's all it connects to. There's nothing going from this high voltage or anything in the electron gun. It simply goes from the outside to the inside conductive coating. And that just forms a big rectangular charged high voltage surface in there that just really pulls the electrons forward. It's about 500 volts on the guns in here, on the highest potential one, to start the electrons moving this way. But it's this high voltage in the front that's really accelerating them towards the front. And what can often happen after you discharge it is there's a bit of like a memory effect that sometimes you can build after a minute or two. There could be more of a charge. It's built back up here, so definitely got to do to make sure it's very well discharged on both sides. Number capacitor in here and a capacitor on the picture tube itself. Only once have I really been bit, because I just discharged it sloppily. Then I went to pull it out, and my finger went right on that, and I got a pretty good jolt, and I was not happy at all. But it won't kill you. Well, what's more likely to be dangerous is not the shock, it's your reaction to the shock, like dropping the picture tube on your foot or something. Here's my replacement 16 RP4. Needs a bit of cleaning, but it does test good. Also needs to have some of this outer coating replaced. I think I have some slip plate on hand. That's what I've been using, slip plate. Graphite spray. It's kind of like spray paint, but it's actually conductive. I'm just kind of guessing about where the ion trap magnet is. Let's see if we notice any improvement. Turn the brightness all the way up. Contrast all the way up. Nothing, but I'll play around with this thing here. Oh yeah, I'd say that's that's definitely brighter. And that's with the lights on. I just want to adjust this for the absolute brightest picture. Don't worry about it being centered or in focus, just absolute brightest. So now the brightness control is definitely having an effect throughout its rotation, whereas with the other one it wasn't doing much. Turn it down. Contrast. It does, but only in kind of a small portion of its range. So something about like that is pretty good. It's centered fairly well. If I needed to adjust it, I got a little tab sticking up here. I can move this magnet around the neck around and reposition things. Not focused too well though. So there's a focus control on the back. I'm going to try adjusting that now. So here it is on one extreme and on the other. It's doing a little something, but certainly not bringing it into sharp focus. So could have a couple issues. One, I still want to double check that high voltage, but I've got a pretty bright picture, so I wouldn't expect that high voltage to be off by too much, if it's off at all. But another factor is this thing. So this is a partly permanent magnet, partly electromagnet. And that's when I would adjust this rheostat down here, is controlling the current flow through that. Maybe an issue with that circuit, and there's not enough current going through this. That's a possibility, or maybe too much. But also notice that there are adjustments here. This whole assembly can go back and forth. I just replaced the picture tube. Even though it's the same type 16 RP4, there's manufacturing tolerances. Variances between the manufacturers, and this neck length, the position of the actual electron gun in here, may be a little bit different in this particular CRT. So the simplest thing for me to try doing is loosen up the screw on either side and slide this whole thing back and forth and see if I can kind of find a sweet spot where it comes into focus. Yep, tweaking that a little bit made a big difference. I also measured the high voltage, and it is close to 11,000 volts. Now I'm feeding it with a stronger signal, and very happy with the picture. Very happy with the picture. What I'm not so happy with is the tuner. So now finally getting back to that. Very touchy. So I got a comment about continuous tuners, and they were surprised here that they existed. They were more used to the click style tuner. They were surprised that these even existed. Well, some are better implemented than others. For sure, the Dumont sets and Stromberg Carlson clones and Crosley and whatnot that used the Mallory and Duck tuner worked pretty well. And I've seen some other variations where there were slugs that moved up and down, or variable capacitance plates. Well, see, the problem with these is that it's hard to tune a channel in. You got to get right on it. So this outer knob here actually has a bit of a vernier drive, and it's kind of sticky because the lubrication is probably dried out. It's especially touchy to get the sound in. And another quirk, especially when you use these converter boxes, is that, so here we've got the station with good sound. If I keep tuning, lose the sound, we'll start losing the station. And then it starts to come back in, because I'm picking up a sideband. that from a broadcast transmission they filter out. For these converter boxes, they don't bother, because you typically would just have it locked into one channel, so it can get confusing. Now, sure, typically if you're going to use this set, you'd probably just leave it on channel 3, get it locked in good, and leave it alone. I just thought I'd point that out, because when I was working on my first set with a continuous tuner, a Dumont, I was getting really confused, thinking that the alignment was really out of whack or something wrong with the tuner, because I was picking up the station in more than one spot. Well, no, that's just a sideband that wasn't filtered out in the cheapy RF modulator. I can tell things are a little bit dirty too. I've noticed the picture isn't as good as it was when I first started recording. And part of that too might be my antenna setup in the back. So I'm noticing there's kind of two places where good sound too. It's a very slight null in between. So I might want to try doing an alignment to tweak this out. Now something else to play with is I turn the tuner all the way to the far extreme. So here it is going, this I guess would be channel 2 at one extreme. I'm going to start going the other way. So I pick up channel 3, that's what I'm currently using with my RF modulator. And as we keep going, we shall hit channel 6. Which is a weak over-the-air station, and then something kind of flips over. And I believe what it's doing is it's flipping over to the higher VHF band, so you go right from 6 to 7 continuously. That's normally where the FM radio band resides, in between 6 and 7, but you don't hear that. So you keep going, and going, and going, and going, and then the high voltage clicks out. That's that switch I had noted on the schematic. This guy. That just cut juice to the horizontal output tube. If I keep going a little bit more, I'm hitting the FM radio band. And that's kind of got stations coming into 2 spots as well. Sounds good though. And if I keep going, eventually there's kind of a switch. I feel like a little bit of a crunch. That is the switch into phono mode. And you go past that. And from radio mode, and if we keep going back, we should get some high voltage back, but notice that's a little bit sticky. There's probably a dirty switch contact in there, so if sometimes the picture comes back, sometimes it doesn't, and I need to work it back and forth a bunch.